As Haitian authorities continue to investigate the assassination of Haitian President Jovenel Moise, the head of security at the presidential residence, Dimitri Hérard, has been taken into custody. He had been questioned by the security unit at Haiti National Palace early on Wednesday.
At the same time, other reports are coming out that Haiti's acting prime minister, Claude Joseph, is thought to be the mastermind behind the president's assassination by the FBI and the Haitian police. Joining us to discuss is English language editor at Haiti Liberté, Kim Ives. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you very much, Ryan.
So what is the latest that we know about the investigation into the assassination?
Well, there's been a lot of speculation that he might have been killed by a security detail because people thought that he may have been tortured because he was missing an eye, as autopsy photos that went out on social media indicated, and they showed that his body was pretty beat up, broken bones and shot up, etc. So this led to thoughts that somebody with a lot of hatred or anger had tortured him beforehand. But we got an account from somebody who spoke directly to Martine Moise, and she said, no, it was the Colombians who shot her first and then shot him, and with machine gun fire. And we consulted a pathologist who looked at the x-rays and pictures and said what he saw was consistent with the damage and trauma that a machine gun would make if shot at somebody at close range. So it's looking like that. I see they picked up Dimitri Hérard. He's been central to a lot of the speculation. And who knows, I heard that he may have gone to Colombia and he may have been in cahoots with them in some way, but it seems the actual shooting of the presidential couple was done by the Colombians. And La Semana has a piece this morning which says one of the mercenaries confessed that 7 of them pulled the trigger, in fact.
Wow. So what does that tell us about the motivations of the operation? What does learning that this increasingly does appear to be the work of the Colombians tell us about why this operation was carried out?
Well, our working hypothesis is that it was carried out by the sector of the Haitian bourgeoisie, which has been at war, which has been feuding with President Moise. There was basically a falling out among thieves, if you will, after the Petrocaribe funds from Venezuela's Solidarity Project to Haiti, where from 2008 to 2018, they provided 20,000 barrels of oil a day, and 40% of the revenue from that could go into a fund, which was supposed to finance roads and hospitals and schools, etc. But when that all ended, it was being embezzled by the Haitian government officials. The party ended, and they started to fight among each other. And Moise was in a very bitter feud with them. One of the principal bourgeois families had an arrest warrant out against him, and it looks like that was one factor, plus the factor that there's a revolution brewing in Haiti's vast shanty towns, and they were scared to death of that.
How does Christian Sano, the kind of Haitian-born American pastor who's been arrested, factor into this question?
Well, I can guarantee he's a complete front. He is by no means. He's sort of an Oswald-like figure. They're just trying to pin it on him. He definitely did not mastermind this or fund it, etc. He was a very marginal guy. I spoke to people in Brooklyn here yesterday who knew him when he was going around. He'd been in Arizona for a while, so he was apparently bankrupt, and so obviously they had him do the dirty work. So if things did go awry, the blame would land on him. But I'm 100% sure that it wasn't him who was behind it. This was the big families. This was a lot of money. 30 guys, $3,000 a month, weapons, cars, telephones, you name it. This was hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars went into this operation.
The Black Alliance for Peace has come out in solidarity with the Haitian people, tweeting that they're against the United States and the United Nations intervention into the country and will be holding a protest in Washington, D.C. today. Kim, can you tell us a little bit about what the American media is getting wrong when it comes to covering the assassination in Haiti?
Well, I think they have to look at what is the motivation. First thing, it's inconceivable to me, to us at Haiti Liberté, that the U.S. Embassy could not have been aware of this. This had a giant footprint. They're monitoring cell phone traffic and internet traffic. So how did they not know about this? They blew the whistle on a similar attempt 20 years ago against President Preval and told him, and the conspirators got rounded up, even though they got away and later were part of the coup d'etat against Jean-Bertrand Aristide 4 years later. But in this case, somehow they let it go forward. So really, we have to ask, why would the U.S. do that? What did they feel the situation was so out of control in Haiti and that Moise had sort of failed in his mission to keep that neo-colony stable, that he needed to be taken out, and they needed it done in such a way that it would justify foreign military intervention. So we think Black Alliance for Peace, Code Pink, Answer Coalition, the different groups that are planning actions to fight against possible foreign military intervention. This would be the fourth in just over a century, and the Haitian people don't want it. I don't think the region want it. I don't think the U.S. people want it. We just got out of Afghanistan. What are we doing going into Haiti now?
In 2019, you reported for The Intercept on what was described at the time as kind of a half-baked mercenary scheme on the island. When you saw this unfold just recently, did you think back to that reporting, and what conclusions can you draw from what you found then and this new world where there are so many guns for hire available to these feuding factions around the world?
Right. It's quite remarkable how Colombia has become an exporter of mercenaries. Cuba exports doctors. Colombia exports mercenaries. It's a ridiculous thing to be specialist in. But it did occur to me that the Americans got off scot-free. They came in with their guns, went through immigration and customs. They just came in. They didn't go through it, and so they violated export laws in the U.S. They violated the Haitian laws. They were trying to steal $80 million out of the bank, the money that belonged to Venezuela, by the way. That was, again, part of this Petrocaribe money, and transfer it to Moise. And they got off scot-free. Not one of them has ever been tried either in Haiti, where the U.S. Embassy whisked them out. And, of course, the Colombians, I guess being from Latin America, did not have the same power to be whisked away to the safety of Colombia. But those comparisons between Latin American mercenaries versus American mercenaries, U.S. mercenaries, was pretty stark to us. But also kind of the hubris, the assumptions that, we're going to Haiti, those people don't understand anything, they're savages. No, the Haitians foiled the first one. They didn't foil this one. He was, the president was killed, but these guys, I don't know what they were thinking. Did they think they could just drive away from that? And that they had no exit strategy? Obviously not. So kind of the stupidity of these so-called well-trained mercenaries is very much on display in both cases.
Yeah, hubris is a good word for that. My question was just going to be, how is the political unrest affecting the Haitian people, who obviously have already been rocked by unrest? When you have gangs with so much control already over, patrolling a lot of these especially these poor areas, how is the political unrest actually affecting the people of Haiti right now?
Well, they are the unrest, and it's because they've been basically starved and repressed and oppressed for 3-4 decades now, and they've said it's enough. I mean, these organizations that have formed in the shanty towns. They're called gangs, which is sort of a pejorative term, but they're neighborhood organizations. They are now armed, and many of them are aligned in an alliance, which is trying to stamp out crimes, stamp out kidnapping, stamp out the rape and extortion and other crimes that have been committed by some gangs, if you will, in desperation, trying to find a way to survive. But some of the gangs have said, no, we can't have this, and we need a revolution in the country. We need to finish with this system, which is killing most of the Haitian people on a low intensity level every day, dying of starvation and disease that can be prevented.
And I had heard, and I want to get your take on this, that some of these organizations that may have started out as kind of criminal enterprises in desperation have actually evolved into sort of almost armed revolutionary populist movements and are now kind of becoming active in
exerting political
politics
power
and in government. And related to that, what did you make of the Prime Minister asking for U.S. troops to come in, and what kind of clues did that give you as to the motivation of the Prime Minister at the time, and how does that relate to his conflict with these organized revolutionary elements?
Well, this guy is a creature of the NED, the National Endowment for Democracy, which we know is a cutout of the CIA. Back in '83, Reagan formed it to do kind of the political work above ground that the CIA used to do underground. So he was recruited and funded, et cetera, back in the early 2000s for the coup against Aristide. He was one of the so-called student leaders. It was part of a human rights group, et cetera. So it's no surprise for him to come. Here's a puppet of the U.S. who's asking the puppeteer to come save his country. And I mean, it's pretty pathetic. I don't know why they thought nobody would see this, but the Haitian people are almost universally opposed to any foreign military intervention in the country. They've had enough of it. In fact, it could be argued that since 1915, when the first U.S. Marine intervention happened, what we see today is the result of that, the debilitation of the state, the wrecking of the economy. Haiti used to be able to feed itself. It can't today, and that's largely due to U.S. neoliberal policies. So I think that we have to look at the role of the so-called gangs, which are basically the Haitian people organizing themselves in maybe not always a completely traditional way, but they are trying to organize themselves and take back their country. This is how they're doing it.
Right. Well, Kim, thank you so much for joining us here on Rising.
Thank you for inviting me.
And we'll have more Rising right after this. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any of our new content.